Hey everybody, this is James,
Marco,
Nabil,
and Mikey.
And this is the Movie Pals Podcast, podcast number 166. It's quite a few episodes, guys. Just the number keeps increasing. So today we are going to be doing our new segment, which I called it something here. I don't know if you guys noticed. It's Hilarious Films Forgotten in Time. I thought that was a catchy one. So that's our segment. Hilarious Films Forgotten in Time. It's better than I don't know, what was the other one, like horror films that scared us as kids or something. It's just direct,
very specific.
Yeah, like okay, so I was like, okay, let's try to make it sound a little better for a title. We have Nabil's pick of Stay Tuned, the 1992 film. Today we're going to be reviewing that, going over how funny we think it is, and then we will be doing a review of The Raid Redemption, which is from 2011, but we will explain kind of our thought process on some episodes we'll be doing this year, changing up a little bit for 2024. So, like we said, we do have some announcements, so we will get into that. So, without further ado, let's get into our topic of the week: hilarious films forgotten in time.
It's the topic of the week.
So, Nabil was the first one up on this one, and he chose the film Stay Tuned from 1992.
Sorry to disturb you at this hour, but I have something you want.
A new TV?
It broadcast programs no one had ever seen.
Wednesday at 9, don't miss an all-new episode of The Silencer of the Lambs.
Then one night, Roy and Helen Nabel got sucked in and discovered that hell is one TV show after another.
Let's welcome our new contestants, Roy and Helen Nabel!
And they're starring in every show.
I've watched enough wrestling to know one thing. It's all fake. No one ever gets...
Not fake. Not fake.
So the
object, Mr. Pierce, is to kill them before they reach the end.
Oh my God, we're cartoons.
I am not a mouse. I'm Helen Nabel. I have two beautiful children. Mom? Our parents are trapped in television.
Currently sits at a 47% of Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I say currently, but I don't think it's ever going to change.
It's not going to go up.
No. IMDb description is: a husband and wife are sucked into a hellish television set and must survive the gauntlet of twisted versions of shows in which they find themselves. Directed by Peter Iams, who directed strangely enough, the 2010, The Year We Make Contact, which is the 2001: A Space Odyssey sequel. Time Cop, which I think is a personal favorite of a lot of us here.
Yeah.
And The Relic from 1997. So,
what a combo.
Definitely. I don't think I've seen The Relic, although I was thinking about that. I was like, have I seen that movie? I don't know. Written by, this is like a partner duo, Thomas Parker and Jim Genuine, who did also Richie Rich in 1984, The Flintstones in 1984, and Major League 2 in 1984. They did 3 movies in 1984, just like their most notable ones, just so you know.
Just knocking them out.
Director and writers just completely contrast each other.
Yeah, they're like, what if we told you this? This was released on August 14th, 1992, with a budget of 15 to 20 million. This only made 12 million in the box office, so this was a definite flop. So this definitely categorizes as a forgotten film because, as we will get into it, I don't think too many people will even remember this film. This was starring John Ritter, the late John Ritter, as Roy Knable. Pam Dauber, I want to say, has Helen Knable. Jeffrey
Sounds
Jones, right. Convicted child, convicted pedophile, is Johnny Spike. David Tom as Daryl Knable. Heather McComb as the daughter Diane Knable, and Eugene Levy in an earlier role as Crawley. So Nabil's going to take a stand back here real quick. We'll get all into his history into it in a moment. But for Marco and Mikey, I do want to start with you guys. Do you have any history with Stay Tuned? Mikey, start with you.
Actually, yeah. I used to watch this movie all the time with the family. I don't know why we liked it so much, but I've seen this movie probably 10, 15 times as a kid. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, though. So, yeah, but I've seen this movie a lot, and my family used to love it for some reason. So,
okay. What about you, Marco?
I remember seeing the trailers for this movie, but I don't think I've ever seen it. And when Nabil mentioned it, I was like, damn, talk about memory lane. So, yep, that's my history with the movie.
You did get some memories, though, from it.
Yeah, from what I saw in the trailers, I was like, oh, okay, I remember this now.
I have never heard of this film beforehand. Just to let you know, like never once. I don't even know. Like you said, you watched it a lot, Mikey. Was this on like TNT or Comedy Central or?
For me, when we were watching it, it was on one of the movie. I don't remember which, like HBO or something, something like that. And my grandpa, he basically just had a black box, right? Back in the day when they were super popular.
We all did.
So yeah. So it's they had one of those, and it just happened every time we went to my grandpa's house. Like this movie was just playing, so we used to watch it all the time when we were at his house. So it kind of brought back a lot of memories and such.
Nice. Okay. So let's jump into the movie then. Mikey and Marco and I. What did you guys? Okay, so then Mikey, I'll start with you since you have the most nostalgia for it. What did you think? Since you said you have not rewatched it since probably the early '90s, assuming mid '90s. What did you think about seeing it again recently?
So yeah, I mean, watching it back, I mean, it did bring back some memories, some nostalgia from when I was a kid, and like memories of being with my family and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of nice in that aspect. But the movie wasn't as good as I remember. Maybe just because I've seen so many movies since then. I do like the little commercials. I'll say what they are, like where they were like playing riffs off of the movies from the time. It just kind of reminds me of them, and I did like those kind of aspects here. The movie as a whole, though, it was a little different than I remembered. I remember it being really funny from when I was a kid, and in this time here, I did think it was funny in some places, but overall, it wasn't as good as I remember it being.
Okay. I mean, honest review. Marco, what about you? Since I'd only seen trailers, obviously, and some slight nostalgia at least. What did you think after seeing the movie? What did you think of the movie? And then I guess, Mikey kind of jumped into the funniness. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second here.
Well, trailers never really are as accurate as they seem. And I remember the trailer for this being a little bit funnier than what I expected. Maybe it's just because I was a kid back then, and like Mikey said, we've been a little bit more experienced in film watching, but it was okay. Truthfully, it was all right. It was weird. It was definitely a 90s movie. I'm like, this is one of those quirky 90s movies that they just like freaking had in a fever dream and just decided to make into like a film. Like I don't know if you guys remember. Well, James probably not, but Mikey, like in the 90s, there was just a lot of these weird, quirky, I guess, quote unquote family movies, and this fits into that genre. And I guess it worked for the time, and even I was a sucker for some of them, but like now it's just like hasn't really aged that well. So I mean, it was all right. Wasn't great, wasn't didn't hit it out of the park, but it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so, but I, probably more mid to late. I have more memories of, obviously, because when this came out, I was only, 4-ish? 3 or 4, I guess. So I guess,
I was 11.
Yeah, for me, okay, yeah. So then, yeah, that makes sense for you guys. For me, though, personally, I coming in completely blind, this one didn't really work for me. I do like the concept. It was very ahead of itself with, kind of parroting the commercials. I did like that part too, Mikey, with the commercials, and it's all because we can get into somewhat spoilers here. It's basically kind of like a darker version, like satanic kind of devilish kind of things going on. It's very 90s in a way. Like they even make like a Wayne's World reference, and there's three men and a baby. That I thought that part was pretty funny too. But for the most part, and it just didn't work for me. Although I could see why Nabil does like kind of movies like this. No offense, Nabil. We'll get to him in a second. Like this reeked of I was like, this is the dry humor that Nabil probably likes, which is fine. But for me personally, I really struggled to get through this movie. I think there was several times I knocked out for like 20, 30 minutes. I just had to rewind it. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I really liked the animated segment though. That was really cool. I as a kid, I remember liking movies when out of nowhere a cartoon pops in the middle of it, and I thought that was really cool that they kind of added that in, and like that's one of the kind of quote unquote worlds, I guess, that they were going in and kind of jumping in between. And I like John Ritter too. John Ritter, he was taken I think too soon, and it was nice to see him in a movie. Obviously, it didn't do well, but this is almost like equivalent to me now, where this movie. I agree with you, Marco, that the certain 90s films, this is a movie that I think would be on a streaming service now. Like they wouldn't do this as a big release, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that sums it up pretty well.
So on a funny scale, unfortunately, this one didn't work for me. I'm not sure if I gave this to like my nieces or nephews, they're like, "Hey, check this out," if they would even find a lot of the references. I think because it's just so, it's a little too 90s. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like to a point, like they wouldn't understand any of that crap. They'd be like, "What's this all about? This is kind
I
of
mean,
weird." You know?
most of the things they reference are from like, the early 90s, late 80s. So, like,
Yeah.
even some of them are like way earlier than that, even. So, yeah, no one nowadays is going to remember the references.
What's the show that John Ritter was on? His most famous show?
Three's Company, I think.
Three's Company.
Yeah,
That was.
that
I
part
think
was
that was
funny
pretty
as fuck.
funny right there.
That was hilarious that he's in his own show and he's like, you know. But once
Yeah.
again, if you didn't know that, you'd be like, why is he going crazy? Right? Like,
Yeah.
it even has a theme song. So I thought that was like one of the funniest parts. So
Zan was sitting next to me at the time. He's mainly on his tablet.
Did you wake him up to figure out what was going on?
No, he would look up a couple times. He would chuckle a couple times, but he did ask a question. I started laughing at that scene with Three's Company, and he's 9, by the way. And he was lost. He was like, "What's funny about that?"
There's
I was
no
like,
way they would know. And Triple A, I never seen Three's Company, but I know the jingle, and that's why I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But yeah, I gotta agree with you that the cartoon part was probably the funniest part. I was chuckling quite a bit during that part.
Yeah. Did any other scenes stick out to you guys?
Really not necessarily scenes, but just every time they went to a different quote unquote channel, I do think that aspect, we're living in the era of multiverses right now. So in a way that it sort of reminded me of that. So that aspect was pretty cool. And I do agree that was ahead of its time and made the movie a little bit interesting that way.
Yeah, I was kind of, while I was watching it and seeing like, you know, Driving Miss Daisy, kind of the references he did to that, and
that's funny.
like just the dark stuff that they were doing. I was like, what could they do nowadays if they remade this movie, like going through, like get sucked into YouTube or get sucked into one of the streaming services, and they had references to all of them. I think it would be hilarious nowadays. I don't think they'll ever do it, obviously, but I think it would be great to have something like that.
A little bit like Free Guy, I guess. Kind of the concept of going between, I guess, online things and games and blah blah blah, and
yeah, true.
Like cultural references. That's why I'm saying that I feel like this was a little ahead of its time with what it was trying to do. I one thing I'll bring up is like the last 20 minutes, I think, are like the best chunk of the movie because they're doing a lot of like rapid fire shots into different places, and I feel like I wish they had done a little bit more of that throughout the film because I thought the first half was kind of slow with the pacing. Because they go to places, but it's kind of like very slow. Like you're in the segments for a longer time. But when he's jumping near the end, when he's fighting Spike, and like he's going to Star Trek, then he's going to the Western, then he's going to the medieval castle, and then blah blah blah. You know, he just keeps going. The Driving Miss Daisy part, I actually liked the pacing of that, and I wish they had done that a bit more in it. So
it was a well-defined snapshot of 90s TV where you have like the game shows, you have like Star Trek that was big right there. You have those types of serious shows like Little House on the Prairie or TV dramas, which was that French Revolution world that they went to. Just a little snapshot of everything that was pretty popular during the 90s, and it's kind of interesting to look at that at least.
Okay, so I do want to give it a star rating for funny scale, but we'll wait. Let's talk to Nabil now. He's been very patient, quiet.
He's biting his lower lip.
That might just because of it's freezing in St. Louis and trucks are just driving into places. So, Nabil, let us know your history with Stay Tuned.
You know, my history is actually pretty much similar to what Mikey experienced. I watched this on repeat a lot on like the Black Box. I believe it was HBO that it showed up a lot on.
And I feel like that was the main Black Box channel, right?
Yeah, that's the one that was the premium that you got.
And then whatever your neighbor ordered on pay-per-view down the street.
Right. That you can tie into it. Exactly. Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of John Ritter. Sounds like everybody over here pretty much is too. And this is one of the earlier films that I saw. He did some other ones around the same time. Like I like Problem Child is another great example of a film back then. But this one I had always remembered specifically what you just mentioned, James, the rapid fire scene at the end. That part like really stuck with me, and I recall. Just even like thinking about this segment, what film to choose, I recall that segment is what I enjoyed the most of this movie, and that's what I remembered. So I hadn't really remembered a lot of the other films, but I recalled that it was, the spoof film, the satire, and the demonic tone, and being that it was John Ritter and that rapid fire at the end, that's what was kind of kind of brought back some of that nostalgia for me of thinking like, oh, this would be a great film that I remember as a kid enjoying back in the early 90s.
That makes sense, Bill. Like, nostalgia does play heavy on a lot of these older films, and I think it can be good and bad, because I think a lot of times it can almost cloud our judgment on things, because we remember maybe a specific memory or like people that we watch these certain things with, so that kind of creates like a facade where we're like, oh, it's like hilarious, and then you see it now, you're like, holy shit, was I dumb or something back in the day? I don't know.
Sometimes it's better to remember it than to actually relive it. Right?
Yeah. So overall, though, yeah, I mean, I get it. Any questions for Nabil, Mikey, Marco about Nabil's pick? Obviously, no, none.
I'm trying to think. Well, what's your, aside from just the last 20 minutes of it, Nabil, like what else really stood out to this movie for you?
Watching it again, I had forgotten how much they lean into the satanic element of it, and being that it's a PG film in the 90s is different from a PG film today, because that's a little dark context for a child to be able to watch, and obviously that went over a bit over my head as a kid.
You're right, they're just bad.
Yeah, they're just bad people, not really realizing that
it is actually bad in real life. So actually, it did line up technically.
Yeah. I mean, technically, he could be considered devilish.
Yeah, he was literally like the devil or a devilish figure in it. So
yeah. Little do we all know, 10 years from now, not good for him. So yeah.
So that's what really kind of stuck out for me, was the idea that it was basically them going to hell, and he made a deal with the devil, to improve his life, I guess. Yeah.
I do like how the play on their last name, Knable, is basically like cable.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't put the connection together. Wow. Okay.
I was like, whoa. All right, so let's give it to Nabil here. What do we think? Funny scale. You don't have to rate the movie itself, because we're just going for pure laughs, or like, not entirely plot wise, but laugh wise, comedy wise, fun wise. I guess we'll start with you, Mikey, since you have the most experience with it. What would you still give this movie on a funny scale?
I give it 2.5 stars. It wasn't as funny as I remembered, but I did chuckle a bunch of times for the references they made. So I'll put it right in the middle.
Okay. What about you, Marco?
I have to agree with Mikey on this one. 2.5 stars. Just like he said, it wasn't really like making me laugh my ass off, but there were quite a few chuckles, especially during the cartoon part.
I unfortunately am not as high as you guys. I still give this only a 1 star. So this will get an average of 2 stars, funny overall. All right, Marco. So you will be our second pick here for our hilarious films forgotten in time. It doesn't really roll off the tongue too well. I mean, sorry, but we've already committed to it. So Marco, what is your pick? I know you told me you had something in mind.
Yes. My pick is the 2002 film Death to Smoochie.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice. Okay. That is the Robin Williams and Ed Norton film, I believe, right?
Yes. 2 back-to-back films with late actors. Look at that. We're old.
Oh, I almost thought you said Ed Norton was dead, too. I was like, I think he's still alive, bro. Just because he's not the Hulk, Marco, doesn't mean he's dead.
Comic books beginning Marcus again.
Okay, so with that being said, let's move on now to our main review of The Raid Redemption.
Kedatangan tamu tadi undang. Selamat bekerja dan jangan lupa bersenang-senang.
So before we start our review here, we here at the Movie Pals Pod are actually, this year, we're going to do a couple things differently. We are trying to branch off a little bit more into older films that interest us, or let's take a step back, actually. A lot of films, as you guys know, are getting remasters, not always in 4K, sometimes just an HD remaster, I guess, yes, you can say, something like that. So we are looking into older films. We actually, stat-wise, I know Nabil looked at it too. Like, we actually, a lot of our better episodes are ones that are kind of weird, I guess. Does that make sense? because of the consistency of that, we do reviews every 2 weeks. Sometimes, even though we do a newer film, sometimes it's still off a bit. And by the time it's edited, published, and uploaded to your favorite streaming service, sometimes they're still a little behind. And sometimes people do not give a shit what we're talking about for newer films. So, I think, unless the newer film in theaters is something that we really want to see or something that we think is interesting on our part, we're not going to force ourselves to just watch something in theaters just because it's in there. I think that's a smarter route to take, and because a lot of people, for some strange reason, actually jump in last year, especially into our Deer Hunter review that we did during COVID, which was a very random one. Which was just because at the time I think that had just gotten a 4K remastered itself, and we just talked about the movie. It's something like, hey, we all have never really fully seen the film, and I think this gives us a kind of a unique stance on reviewing certain things, such as, for instance, the Raid Redemption that was just re-released in 4K this last Tuesday. It also gives us kind of a physical media as something that is, I think, important to me personally, and I think to you guys as well, because it's something that cannot be taken away from us and something that can stick around as long as you watch it and buy it, and arguably still is the greatest way to watch things, especially with the way that we have our setups at home. So I think if that's something that interests you, I think this going forward, we will be doing a lot more. It might seem seemingly random, but I think truthfully, it doesn't put us in a bind to like, oh, we have to watch this movie in time before we review it or so-and-so, you know? So what's your guys' opinions on that?
Yeah, I agree. James said this, if anything, first, it brings life to old movies that a lot of people may not have seen, or there's just not a lot discussed on it anymore because it's kind of passed away from time. But the added bonus of it being a physical release on a high, somebody's going back in and reworking it and remastering it, and we're able to kind of get the opportunity to watch it, and with physical media kind of starting to wane out, this is a great way for people to get reintroduced to the value of that. And maybe even if with our little review could help promote some more sales of that, because we want to still see that medium alive.
And I will say, physical media, some of the certain brands are actually thriving right now. Criterion, Arrow Video, Shout Factory, Scream Factory, Severin Films, all this stuff. It's the boutique labels are like jumping in right now where a lot of the bigger companies aren't, which is actually really nice. So
I think in all aspects in life, you're starting to see more of a revival of physical media too. Like, I know we're a movie podcast, but even in music, vinyls outpaced any other format of music media in sales, and like a lot more and more artists are releasing vinyls, physical media, and the enjoyment of that. So I think that this will differentiate us from other podcasts as well too. You'll notice when we release these episodes too, it's like, oh, they did something different, and it shows the evolution of our podcast over the years too.
Yeah, definitely. And let's say in 4 episodes it doesn't work, then we fucking just go back. So
also, I mean, just taking the physical media part out of it, I agree with you guys. I'm not saying that's not true, or I know, kind of along the lines, but I find it very rewarding to myself personally, because I haven't seen these movies in forever, right? And just taking the time to go back and see a movie that I haven't seen in 30 plus years, or somewhere in there, it's kind of fun to me to watch something like that and re-review it, rethink about it. And also, looking at viewership, just people listening to us, maybe they've never seen this movie because they weren't around when this movie was out, right? Yeah. So it could be a brand new movie that we, enlighten somebody on. Hey, this movie is really good. You probably should watch this. And they take it down a rabbit hole, right? Rabbit hole of that kind of genre. So I think both physical media side and just the nostalgia for us, and maybe a brand new experience for somebody else is also a benefit of doing something like this.
We notoriously don't usually review older films unless it was something like a special or a marathon. That's the only real time that we've ever gone back to do something. I mean, like I said, the Deer Hunter thing was literally because me and Nabil and Marco were running out of ideas during COVID. It was like, what the hell else did we do? Like, we did every James Bond film, for Christ's sake. So, I mean, obviously, like we're like, hey, check it out. Now we're doing movies from fucking 50 years ago. So I think it's going to be fun. We have a nice little setup. The nice thing is that literally every week there's something new. So it'd be good. So Like I said though, long intro into the Raid Redemption, obviously, but let's jump right into it. Let's stop here for a moment to let you all know about Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up the most trending articles on the web on topics you choose at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable, all in one place. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, tech, business, science, Bitcoin, or heck, even the Kardashians. Newsly will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. They even have digital radio. Did we mention they also have podcasts from over 80 countries? Well, they do, and guess what? The Movie Pals podcast is there too. I started using Newsly as my default podcast player, and I can't think of ever going back. Download and use Newsly for free now from www.newsly.me or from the link in our description. And make sure to use our promo code TMPALS, that's TMPALS, to receive a 1-month free premium subscription. Newsly, stop scrolling and start listening. So the Raid Redemption was released in 2011 here. Actually, if you guys want to know the exact date, it was released on September 8th, 2011. The 4K remaster just released this past week on the 16th. So, IMDb description is a SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by a ruthless mobster and his army of killers and thugs. This is directed and written by Gareth Evans, who also obviously did The Raid 2, the sequel in 2014, and most recently he did the really underrated horror film Apostle in 2018, by the way. So, this stars... And apologies ahead of time already because these names, they're all Indonesian. So let me try my best here. I want to say Iko Uwai, right? Plays Rama. Joe Taslim plays Chaka. Ray Sahitapi is Tama Riyadi. Yayan Ruhian is Mad Dog. Donnie Alamza is Andy. Ayang Darmawan is Gofar. And Pierre Gruno is Wayu. So. Okay, so I want to just start with your brief thoughts on these before we get into it. Nabil, let's start with you. What is your history with it? It's either I believe it's The Raid is the normal title. The Raid Redemption was the re-release when it came out in America originally. So, yeah. So what's your? We'll just, for our purposes, because the title of the movie is The Raid Redemption on the cover of everything. What is your history with The Raid Redemption?
This was a film that I remember fondly from when it first released in the US, because there's a lot of other type of martial arts, Eastern Asian martial art films started to come out, like Ong Bak and Ip Man and stuff. Exactly. So this was all around that same time they started to come out and get like a resurgence in these serious martial arts films. And I saw this at home on, I'm pretty sure it was on DVD when we ended up watching it. I don't think it released in the theaters. It was just me and the family, my brother really, and we went on a big bender of all these kind of films during this a couple of years time. And yeah, I just had really great memories of watching, reintroducing myself to martial arts, because the whole after Jet Li retiring from a lot of the martial arts films, they kind of just disappeared, and it was great to start seeing a resurgence of it.
Nice. What about you, Mikey?
Yeah, kind of the same. I was a really big Tony Jaa fan, so Ong Bak and all films that he did on his side kind of jumped me into this one here, and this kind of just picks up where Tony Jaa left off, right? I mean, different style of fighting a little bit, but same kind of genre of action film. And it's a fantastic movie. I've seen this movie a million times. Like I've seen it a bunch. This one didn't.
A million, Mikey? A million?
Yes. I probably watch it every year, at least twice. So I watch it a lot. So I like a lot of the scenes here. It's a great movie.
Not 42 times, a million. No, I'm just kidding. That's cool.
Yes, a million. I counted them.
You're like, I have a calendar behind me. I mark it every time. So I got the papers to show the truth here. Marco, I understand this is your first time seeing this, right?
Yeah, I'm the piece of shit here who's never been cultured, and I've never even seen Ong Bak, so I know I just blew Mikey's mind away. These have been okay. Yeah, I'm about to blow you in there. I'm not going to mention it here. I'll tell you guys later. But I have been told about these movies countless times, and it's one of those things where you put in your to-do list and you just never get around to it. But this one in specifically, I've been wanting to watch for the longest time, and I'm glad that I was finally able to do it. But yeah, it's my experience with the raid, man. Just something that's been, in the back burner for years up until now.
Nice. No. I mean, I similar to Bill. I didn't see it in theaters, obviously, but I remember when this came out. I think it came out in 2012 out here in the United States, if I remember, and I was just about to graduate college when it came out. Maybe I don't remember, but it was around that time. Like I remember, like it got recommended to me by like a lot of people, so I watched it at home too. I don't know how I saw it though, because it wasn't really like it wasn't streaming obviously back then. I don't think so.
No,
I must have. I don't think I rented it either, so I don't know how the hell I saw it.
I might have given you the DVD. Who knows?
You might have actually. I might have gotten it off the bill, dude. Yeah, I'm not lying. So I don't remember. I just remember seeing it at home. So yeah, I've seen it a few times, but although I don't think I've seen it probably in over like 10 years at this point. So let's get into it then. So I'll go back to you, starting with you then, Nabil. What did you think about the rewatch here? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was there anything different this time around?
I love the film still. I think it holds up pretty well as far as the fighting. If anything, it's a reminder of how great the John Wick films are. Just seeing the fighting style in here again. I will say that I forgot how thin the plot was. I thought there was a bit more than what was actually going on, because like the whole tower idea film. This is where that premise started. I mean, it's not like an original idea technically, but like with the martial arts aspect of it, it's been a while since a film's been made like this, where they're climbing up levels to try to get to a goal. But I forgot how thin that plot was. I thought more actually happened when we got to the end of it. Yeah, it was a solid film. Great action scenes, and the acting was pretty on point from what I could tell, considering that I watched it subbed, so I got the original voice characters here.
We weren't going to judge you if you did it dubbed, but I will say the subbed version does have Dolby Atmos. If we're going to get a little technical here, and that's the only way to get the full Dolby Atmos, which is, like I said, it hits really hard this movie. So
it's good.
I'm going to jump off from you with you there, Nabil. Like I want to say Dread came out the year prior to this, right? But this movie was already in production way before that. So, like,
because they released around the same time. Yeah,
and I remember a lot of people were like, either Dread was like the Raid or the Raid was like Dread. Something like that is kind of interchangeable with how those storylines are, obviously. Because once again, it is a Tower film, which is like was 2011 and 12, like the Tower movies. Like, I don't know, but I agree with you too. I love the action in this movie, but man, the plot. My issue is I keep combining this movie with the Raid 2.
Yeah, so was I. Yeah,
the Raid 2. I'll spoil alert. Between the two, the Raid 2 is far superior to this movie. And
from a perspective, especially
scenes from the Raid 2 were going to happen, and then I was like, "Oh shit, that's in the sequel." Because the Raid 2 literally starts like from the end of this movie, continues on. Like, I think the last time I saw it was probably back to back, so I just assumed it was one movie or something. I don't know. Once again, maybe
there's enough storyline in both of them to make one storyline. So that makes sense.
No, the storyline I think in the second one's really good, where he goes undercover and shit. But the one in this one is the issue I have is with the pacing of it. It's like whenever it's not action, it's like I just didn't give a shit. I'm like, okay, I get it. We're just trying to kill the fucking guy, so just fucking show me people getting shot and shit, right? Like, like let me see the more fucking fighting again, jumping off fucking walls and shit. Overall, I still had a good time with it. It's just, I do agree with you, Bill. I forgot how, I almost want to say how bad the storyline is. The storyline itself is like, okay. Like, they throw a lot of the subplots in with, like, an estranged brother. I'm like, okay. So, like, I guess this works. Like, very Asian of them to do that, to throw it in. Like, oh, this is my brother that's estranged, but he's a criminal and blah, blah. So, Mikey, what about you? Jumping to you. I know you've seen this a lot. So, obviously, I'm assuming you do enjoy this film since you've seen it a million times.
Yeah, I love this movie. There's just something about like a pure action film when you like, especially like how I watch movies. I'm usually doing something else while I'm watching a movie. I do leather working, for instance. So when I'm sewing something, I'm not always fully paying attention to the movie. And these kind of movies are perfect for that, right? I mean, I don't have to pay attention to some kind of storyline that's going on. I look up and I see someone die. And it's just amazing in that aspect of things, right? Yeah. And this movie is the most pure action movie you can really go to. I mean, this, like you guys were alluding to, the plot is really thin. There's not really much to kind of worry about in that point. And there's action and all kinds of different types of actions, right? They have weapons, bare fist to fist. They have guns. there's not much not to like about it if you're just in here for an action film. So yeah, but like I said, I watch this all the time. I love this movie. I'll watch it going forward as well. So
nice. I assumed. Marco, what about you? What did you think as a first time watcher?
I'm not trying to jump on Mikey's nuts here or anything, but I really fucking love this movie, dude. I really enjoyed it, man.
I'm not trying to suck this man's dick right now.
Yeah, we didn't compare notes before the pod or anything, but dude, I agree with Mikey. It's a pure fucking action movie. I know the plot is pretty thin, but it fucking works, dude. Really. I mean, sometimes it's amazing when you can take like such a simple plot and turn it into something great. I think that's something that not all directors and all movies can do. Sometimes you can really fucking botch it, like Expendables 4. This one actually takes that simple ass.
Isn't Iko Uwais in Expendable 4?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's the bad guy. Yeah. Which is shitty to see after you see him in this movie. You're like, damn, they didn't know how to use him.
Exactly. I was like, holy shit. Like, man, this is the movie we wish we would have gotten. But it's so
like they had Tony Jaa in that one too. Like they literally had both those guys in there. It's like, how do you not have a good movie? So
Is he in Expendables 4? Tony Jaa too?
He's the guy with the boat. Yeah.
Oh my god, he is. I forgot.
I
forgot.
So this is a prime example of two movies with similar thin plots, and one makes it work and makes it endearing. The other one doesn't. The acting was pretty good for an action movie, dude. Basing it just on an action movie at all, like you expect like cheesy bad acting in an action movie. In this movie, it worked. Like it feels like real legit reactions, and the actors pull it off. Let's not forget the choreography is fucking insane, dude. It's just so fucking awesome, and it's just a group of people just beating the shit out of each other, and it just fucking worked, man. I like the fact that it really makes you question, well, I mean, who are really the bad guys? Because I mean, it's just like, the fucking cops weren't supposed to be there, and there's some malicious shit going on there, but it's just like, I mean, you kind of weigh the facts, as the plot progresses. So it made it that much more interesting for me.
That's good. What are the scenes that stood out for you guys? Mikey, Nabil, Marco, floor is free for you guys. Any favorite scenes out of what you guys rewatched here or saw? I guess technically.
I call them the boss fights. So Mad Dog, which is like the right hand man of the lead guy, and he has a couple scenes that are just like crazy good fight scenes, and they really stand out to me.
I think when he's fighting Rama and Andy in that room, that scene's fucking sick, dude.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Dude, do you like how Mad Dog looks like a fucking homeless guy? Like he's just like
he's also really small. Like he's tiny
and sweating.
Yeah, I'm gonna break it to you right now, Mikey. All these guys are small.
No, but he's like smaller than everybody else in the movie, and they're all small.
Oh yeah,
too,
when everyone else is 5'7". Yeah, I mean,
yeah. And
I'm gonna tell you right now,
Mad Dog is in the Raid 2
tall people in this movie.
Did you guys notice that? In Raid 2, Mad Dog is a different character. The guy that plays Mad Dog is in Raid 2.
I haven't seen Raid 2 in a while. I didn't realize that.
Interesting.
Very good to know, though. So, especially, how the fuck? Wait, what the fuck? Isn't he dead?
Yeah, he's not the same character. It's the same actor, different character.
Oh, he plays a different guy. Okay, okay, that's what you meant. Fuck. I was like,
okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that, and I remember when I first watched it, I was like, "Is this the same guy?" And that makes sense. It just reused the character.
I mean, even the drug lord looks like it could be my uncle. So every time he was doing shit, he just wearing a wife beater, not very fit. I was like, "Oh shit." This reminds me of somebody. So, Marco, anything?
For me, it's the hallway fight scene, man. It's just you go from one freaking hallway like into like across the intersection, and you're freaking like going left and right, and there's all these fucking dudes just attacking, and the different tactics that they use. I mean, they're running up walls, or they're using stuff from the ground, they're using their fists, they're using weapons, like anything and everything, and it's just choreographed and filmed so fucking well. They use different camera angles for different shots to emphasize certain like moves, and it's just something that you don't really see in a lot of American action movies, with the exception of maybe like John Wick. And
which you can tell John Wick has got a lot of inspiration from martial arts films leading
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Like, especially these types like Nabil and Mikey were talking about, like Ong Bak and stuff, like where the fighting just keeps going on and on and on, and it seems like it's like one guy versus an army. So that's very reminiscent of what John Wick kind of dives into, I think.
Yeah, there's that, and also the scene where the guy with the machete, and he had these eyes that I swear I've seen on a bill a few times, and just made me think of him.
The darkness, right?
You know? He's just staring down. He's like very threatening with the machete and shit. But those two scenes definitely were memorable for me, or stood out.
And I want to call out too the scene at near the beginning where they're trapped inside the room for the first time, facing everybody, and they kind of all locked in a room. Like that scene, the way the tension in that whole scene, where no matter what you do, you're screwed. You know, somebody stands in front of a window, they're gonna get killed. Somebody standing by the door, they're gonna get killed. Somebody comes into the room, you know, they barge in, and then I just love how that ended, where he ends up, you know, doing something crazy and just taking out the propane tank and essentially blasting up the fridge. Like that whole sequence, because you don't know how things are going to go, and if they're really all going to survive, because they're all just trapped into this room, and like, where's the way out? Like, I loved how that went from like the hyper action to like the stillness for a little bit, and then the action again. It would just keep going back and forth, and that was just kind of to what Marco was saying, like the choreography of how they put that all together and made that set piece work was excellent.
Dude, I think it's like very reminiscent, even like Police Story, where Jackie Chan is just using the environment to his advantage as well.
Yeah.
Like, we never understand why Rama can do all this stuff. Like, not once do they. You just, I guess, like, the dude just kicks ass, apparently, right? Like,
he's just really good.
Literally, right? Like, he just kicks. Even the drug fiend mobster or goons all know how to, like, fight pretty fucking well. And it's just like, okay, this is just the world they live in, and we're just going to roll with it. But the choreography is what makes this movie work for me. It just, everything works. Nothing looks fake to a point. You know, obviously there's some stuff that looks fake, but nothing takes me out of it where I'm like, oh, it's almost like every time Rama comes across somebody, it's like, how's he going to get out of the situation? And I think, like, once again, doesn't talk a lot, right? Once again, when they get the plot, it's like, okay, we're getting some subplot. Like Nabil said, it's pretty thin, but the action is it just hits every single time. So
yeah.
Also in these, I mean, both Marco and Nabil, said something about some of these scenes here. They did actually make some pretty good, like, tense scenes. Like the machete guy, he's like stabbing the wall, right? And I mean, and you're like, wow, this guy's inside the wall. Like, what's going to happen? And then the scene that Bill was saying, I mean, they did those kind of scenes inside of those stuff, and while they didn't really add to the plot, it still gives you a different feel. So you kind of feel like something else is happening, and it keeps you into the movie, as James was saying a minute ago. So you never really come out of it because they have different types of action. And while the story is thin, it does enough for you to just stay in the movie. So all those scenes that were designed that way just make the movie better. So
I mean, it's from the get go. As soon as they get in, I've always said this about this movie: is like it is pretty much nonstop outside of the few scenes where they're trying to add some plot to it.
Yeah,
we got guys sniping people. We have people just kicking ass inside. He's going down floors. He's falling down floors. When he grabs a guy, I like when he gets the guy, jumps out the window with him, and goes down like 3 floors onto like a fire escape. I'm like, Jesus, man! Like, it's pretty intense. Like the way it's shot too, and I can only imagine the budget for this film was not that high, because I know in Raid 2 they get a higher budget. That's why things look really crazy good in that one too. But with what they use here and what they know, what they need to get done with just kind of showing off the action, it's great, man. So. One thing I do want to talk about, anybody in the cast stood out for you outside? I mean, Rama, obviously, like I said, is like a fucking super cop. He just kicks ass. At this point, I just, you see these films, you're like, do all Asians know how to fight like this too? So, I mean, it's pretty intense. Outside of Rama, I would say, did anyone else stand out to you guys?
I'd say really just Mad Dog, really, for how intense he fights and just how calculating he is and how just overconfident he is in every fight. Like, he just comes in knowing he's going to win. For example, when he fought Rama's brother, he like decided like, not to use guns, and was explaining how he prefers to use his hands and fists rather than weapons and stuff. And then he just, starts, kicking fucking ass. I was
like we're trying to do a 10-minute fight scene here, so
yeah, basically, yeah. Like, but it's just it's the tension because you've already seen just how deadly this guy is, and he's about to just go even more unleashed. So
yeah,
his character really stood out. Him, and I would say probably even like the mob boss, not because he had like, not because he was super fucking like paranoid, but also like, I mean, hey, he was offering free housing, guys. God damn it! I mean, I was just saying,
to the drug people and his people. What the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, what else do these people have? They're low-income housing. But I was like, geez, damn, he's just like, just kill these guys. You can live here for free. I was like, fuck, man.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in that place. I would have died in that first room. I've been standing too close to the door when the shotgun went off. Like, well, I'm dead. So, and sorry, Nabil, you were about to say something.
I was gonna say I really liked also Jaka. I didn't. He's the sergeant on the team. I wasn't sure about him at first when they introduced him. I was like, oh, he's just playing the.
I forgot. I thought too. Yeah. I was like, is he in on it too? I was like, is he bad? So.
Exactly. But when he had his like, especially near the end where he's piecing everything together and he's just really upset with the betrayal that he had with him, and then the fight scene at the end of his one of his last fight scenes, that was
brutally, man.
Yeah, it was really intense and painful to go through. But I really kind of appreciated him more as the film continued on versus at first, I kind of figured he'd just be another throwaway character after a while. So I really liked his Jaka and his performance in there.
I do want to jump in now. So we did watch this on the 4K disc that came out because I don't. Oh well, there were actually I take it back. There is a way to watch it digitally 4K. It's only on Movies Anywhere right now. Sometimes Movies Anywhere does that. I don't know if you noticed that. That's the only way you can watch it in 4K right now digitally, from what I'm seeing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I did see it on Apple TV. It was available in 4K when I.
Is it in 4K now?
When I was able to do the thing, the purchase or whatever, redemption.
Well, check that. I would double check that because when you redeem it, sometimes iTunes does not redeem in 4K. I think it's only in HD. If that's the case. But I mean, you can double check. It's fine. But I think it's only on there. But for the most part, we all watched on disc. What did you guys think? I sent you guys a video of like the comparisons. The Blu-ray for this movie / DVD, it's notorious for the color grading was really off on it. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It had like a blue tinge to the entire film. So Gareth Evans went back personally and like I think he's been editing this for over the last year to get this back to like what he was envisioning how it should look. What did you guys think of the quality of the picture and the sound overall?
Yeah, me and Nabil were talking about it a little bit before we started the podcast here, before you guys joined, and I agree with him. He was saying basically like it didn't look sharpest as like 4K movies do, but I did notice the colors. The colors were a lot more crisp, and I do remember like the blurring and the blue kind of tint we had on the previous model or the previous version. So that really stood out to me, and I could tell the sound difference as well. I don't know if we're going into that right now here, but the sound was really good. I watched the Indonesian version with the Dolby, and I have a pretty decent sound system. And I was at the house by myself, and I was able to just crank it up and just listen to it, and it was just amazing. It sounded way crisper than it used to, and again, the colors looked really nice. So I did definitely see the difference between the version I normally watch and this version here. So,
and I will bring up the reason why it does not come out as crisp as certain 4K ones is that it's not a native 4K film. This is upscaled.
Yeah.
So this is upscaled 4K. So not all films that we're going to watch were shot in 4K, obviously, guys. It wasn't around all the time, and it wasn't shot on film. So film, you can always upscale to 4K. It's amazing. So that's why certain movies especially if you guys have seen any older films of 60s, 70s, they look amazing on 4K. So, some of them, not all of them. Sometimes we'll get into this more, but sometimes studios tend to do DNR, which is digital noise reduction, and it makes it look like shit because it smooths things over. But we'll get to that when we get to that for certain films. But what about you guys, Nabil, Marco? Did you guys like the overall quality of everything, or anything stand out?
It looked fucking amazing. Truthfully, like I know it wasn't like perfect, but man, on the fucking OLED,
oh yeah,
chef's kiss, man. It just looked so fucking detailed, and obviously like I have no reference because I never saw like the original, but just like from face value, it looked fucking amazing for a movie that came out back in 2011. No, that's not that far off, but you'd be amazed how many movies from 2011 haven't really aged that well. So
it's been 13 years, so it's a decent amount of chunk of time.
Yeah, exactly. So everything like looked fucking as crisp as it could. And I saw it in native Indonesian also. So like I agree with Mikey that the Dolby was just fucking pumping, dude. Like every freaking kick, hit, punch, drop, like dude, it was fucking incredible. Yeah.
And that is one of the benefits I think of disc compared to streaming. If any of our listeners aren't aware, a lot of the time streaming still does show you things in Dolby Vision / Dolby Atmos. Dolby Vision is just the HDR grading of the disc itself. Not every disc has that. Nabil, Mikey, Marco, and I all have setups where we can do Dolby Vision discs as well as Dolby Atmos sound. I'm pretty sure we can all do that. So everything that we review forward, if we'll be able to see the best version of it on our setups. So rest assured, we are actually seeing it the best way we can for now until something else comes out one day, right?
4K podcast.
Yeah, we are the 4K. We're just trying. We're pivoting, okay, guys? We're fucking pivoting. But the nice thing about it too is that with streaming, a lot of times even though they have Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision, they're very compressed still. So that is why you see certain things that's called noise, and a lot of times, especially with sound on streaming is notoriously not as good as disc. Just like a lot of streaming music is not as good as either vinyl or CD quality still a lot of times with bit rates. So it all depends. Some discs, once again, though, all discs are not created equal. So some sound great, some don't. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things for this particular film that really stood out. Like Mike had mentioned, we were talking about the visual quality of it. Like it looks great. Don't get me wrong, but like when we had done the Godfather reviews, I'd seen the Godfather films in 4K, and that because it was shot in film. And the way that they put that onto the disc, like that was a very noticeable difference on how great that quality is, even compared to, I was going back and forth a little bit between that and streaming. And you could see the difference there. And this one was so excellent, but it's not quite at that level in comparison because of the upscaling. But the sound quality, especially for this kind of film, every punch landed, you could hear that hit. You can see that you can see the visualization of the guns moving around and different sounds that were coming from that. Like it sounded excellent. And that if you're not getting one thing from this film, you're going to get the other thing. And the sound definitely like stood out the most. So and then I know we haven't really talked about that either, but the soundtrack itself was just, the score that they had over here on here, because
yes,
there was the two versions of the original release in Indonesia, and then we got the one that was released as well from one of the singers in or the bandmates of Linkin Park did the score for the film, and and that was just added even that much more intensity to the film that really got you amped, that music that they put into it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm really glad you guys had a great time with this one. Let's get into our ratings, and we're going to go into a brief spoiler section. There's not much to spoil here. It's really more just tying it all up. What would you rate this movie on a scale of 1 through 5 star rating? Mikey, go ahead. You start us off.
I give it a 4. And if you haven't seen this movie and you're an action fan, please go watch it. It's top notch for sure.
Definitely. Nabil, what's your rating?
I also give this a 4.
And Marco, what is your rating?
4.5 stars. This movie is fucking fantastic, and I highly recommend it, obviously.
Dude, I seriously want you need to stop everything you're doing after this tonight and watch The Raid 2, please, for the love of God.
I do it. I want to. I was like, fuck,
now I want to on your list now. Just to let you know, like, dude, especially since this is fresh in your mind still, like, jump right into it. You'll love it, dude. I give this one 3.5 stars. So, yeah, I really enjoyed rewatching this. This was a great movie to add to my collection as well for 4K discs. And I'm looking forward to more sections with it as well. We're going to jump briefly to spoiler sections. Like I said, there's not much more to go over here. So if you want to skip ahead, if you're deciding to watch this, we're not going to go over much here. So, and see what we are reviewing next. So let's jump right into the spoiler section, guys. This is going to be more of like a two for. We kind of already revealed Andy is Rama's brother. That is one of the things that I just want to bring up that was a little weak because I didn't even think it was really necessary. But I guess it adds a bit of like story or kind of momentum for Rama to do what he's doing because he's trying to bring his brother back, right? So, did that stick out to you guys? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
I will say that I didn't think that it landed the way they wanted it to, because like there was at first it was trying to get not Mad Dog, but the drug lord Tama, but as they found out that they were outnumbered and he was trying to escape, Rama's whole thing with his brother being there, Andy saying that, oh, well, let's get you out, just seemed like they kind of tacked that on, and he just needed another reason to save somebody since everybody else has been lost. I was like, you didn't really need that. It would have been fine, just to get him out of there and try to survive with the sergeant that he had before he died. Like, yeah, I felt like that was just there to try to do something with that plot.
I at first didn't really understand what the point of that was, but later on I do like the contrast of that. Like, it wasn't necessary up until you see the contrast of two different worlds. One's a cop, one's a quote unquote criminal, whatever. And
he's a criminal, yeah.
It shows, like, he asks him, "Why do you do this?" And he's like, "This is what I'm good at. You're good at this. This is what I'm good at. This is where you're the professional in, as a cop, I'm a professional in what I do and doing, illegal shit and stuff."
Yeah.
And I just do like that contrast. Well, at the same time, you're looking at both sides and it's like, well, the cops are serving an illegal warrant, in order to make another rival gang, richer and more powerful. So it's like they're both being used, from in one way or another. And I liked how it showed that.
Yeah, and I like the interaction at the end. Actually, I will add to that where he kind of tells him to come with them, but he's like, he understands that that's. I don't know if the Little Mermaid's hitting me here, but not part of his world, right? So like, he has to kind of like spread apart, and it's like, nah, So I like that interaction at the end. So sorry, Mike, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was actually going to basically say exactly what you said here. That scene itself in his apartment building or his apartment room, while itself wasn't the greatest scene and maybe wasn't needed, it does set up things for the future that you kind of see. I mean, obviously the Mad Dog fight, right? You couldn't happen without it. You see the crime boss, Tama, kind of turn on him a little bit and stabs him, or I think Mad Dog actually stabs him in the hand, right?
Yeah,
so it sets up the future, and it also, like you guys said, the ending is very, hey, you do your thing, I do my thing kind of thing. And when you think about it, he's actually the new crime lord because he was the second right-hand man, right? So he's now, that whole building is his. So it's like he's taking over as the new crime boss for whatever that gang is. So there's a lot of things that have developed out of that. Maybe, mediocre scene.
And I want to say that leads into some stuff that happens in the second movie too, by the way. So cool. Speaking of corrupt cops, then we have Lieutenant Wahoo, I believe. It's revealed that he is the one that, this was not a sanctioned raid, and that he basically doing this because he's got some skeletons in his own closet there, basically. So I kind of figured from the beginning that he was bad because it just seemed like he was the one guy off. And it's always when you see somebody that's not wearing all the same clothes. Of that too, yeah. Shit. He also looks the strangest out of everyone, by the way. At times, I didn't realize he was Indonesian. I was like, this guy Irish?
I kept thinking, it's like, do I know him from another show?
Dude, same here. But then, no, I don't. I looked it up. I was like, never mind. He's in the second movie. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, fuck. So once again, I felt like out of anything, at least his betrayal, it was very like apparent. But that moved the plot along with kind of adding to like what the fuck was going on. So I didn't mind that. So anything other spoiler wise, like I said, there's not much left to spoil on this movie. It's very straightforward. So anything else? Any closing thoughts, guys?
I do like how the corrupt lieutenant, like at the end, realized he was fucked, and he kills the drug. He just kills him anyway. He's like, I'm fucked either way, so why would I let you live?
Thinking though, I was like, how many bullets does that fucking pistol have?
Yeah.
Even then, I was like, I think he's
bullets. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's out.
Right? Yeah. Yep. No, same thing to Bill. I was like, he's got to be out. So
he's out, right? Sorry.
I was thinking of you thinking fucking Dark Knight. Fuck, man, I got that reference. I was thinking that and a little bit of fucking Dirty Harry. Like, how many did I shoot? Are you feeling lucky? All right, so guys, that is the end of our review of The Raid Redemption. We all actually really enjoyed it, and we recommend checking it out. Nabil has verified it is digitally available now in 4K, so if you do not want to pick up the disc, it is available now also on probably all major streaming if iTunes update it. Sometimes they don't always update at the same time, so obviously it took them a while, but it's on there now. So with that being the podcast, Marco, let them know how they can reach us.
Listen and follow us on your favorite podcast service. Trust us, we're on all of them. For a quick link to all our socials, visit linktree/moviepalspod. That's linktr.ee/moviepalspod. Thank you, and make sure to smash that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode in standard HD or in 4K.
Make sure to also stay tuned for our next episode number 167, where we'll be reviewing Argyle, as well as our next pick for the hilarious films Forgotten in Time by Marco, Death to Smoochie.
Thanks to Bill. Until next time, this is James,
Marco,
Nabil,
and Mikey.
Have a great one.